Welcome to the Health Angle Podcast. I am Dr. Mike Headlee, and with me is Dr. Gordon Fimreite. Welcome,
Hey,
Dr. Gordy.
welcome to the Health Angle, where we take an angle of health each week and make it pertinent to your life and hopefully give enough tips where all of us can utilize optimal health and longevity.
We're going to talk about fasting and intermittent fasting, and it's kind of a popular topic for a lot of biohackers or health enthusiasts. However, it's nothing new. I mean, it's biblical. It's basically every religion has talked about its spiritual benefits, but we're going to talk about the health benefits today. I have an article that talks about strategies to optimize our mitochondrial health, Gordy,
Nice.
Dr. Gordon. And that's our powerhouses of our cell. That's the energy makers of our cell. And so if our cells are making proper energy, our body's just going to be focused and healthy and reproducing and replicating healthy and wellness habits in our body. And so one of the simplest, easiest ways to damage our mitochondria, and we're going to talk about this next time, is one of the most foundational lifestyle components that can make or break our mitochondria is EMF, or electromagnetic field exposure. So we'll dive into that next time. But guess what? One of the most important strategies to enhance your mitochondria is fasting. So let's dive into this. So there's a lot of type of fasting. And most people, when I ask them in my office, Dr. Gordy, I said, do you fast? Are you into intermittent fasting or any kind of fasting? Well, no, I can't do that. Well, we all fast somewhat at night, because we don't eat unless we set the alarm every hour and a half to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. But yeah, if I had a goal for everyone listening, minimally, I think it's important to fast for 12 hours. Just say 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's a 12-hour fast, whether you're conscious of that or not. And so there's several types of fasting. But before I dive into the specifics, tell me a little bit about your fasting. What's your fast overnight?
Dr. Mike, I've done fasting before, and I'm one of these people that have a fast metabolism. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. They're working out, they're exercising, they're optimizing their health through the nutritious foods. However, when I did my fast, it like zonked me out where I was almost non-functional. My lifestyle, I almost reduced my calorie intake, and it's just a lifestyle. I'm not trying to necessarily. I just don't have a big appetite. And I know at night, one of my repertoires of what I do is I take an acai with some warm water. It's a powder form. You drink that, and what happens, it empties your bowels. It gets your digestion moving. And in essence, it is similar to a fast, not exactly, but has a similar effect. And then in the morning, I'll take 3 dried apricots, and that also just empties the bowels and keep things moving. Mostly what I do is I restrict the calorie intake. But as far as fasting, if you think about it, one of the most popular types of fasting out there right now, I did a blog on this just earlier this week, is called the 16 to 8 or the 5 to 2. And were you going to talk about that, Mike, Dr. Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
But when do you fast overnight? Somewhat, though, correct?
Well, after eating dinner, I try not to eat anything after 7 o'clock or so. And I'm usually a late owl. My hours in the morning don't start till 10 o'clock. So I'll have breakfast about 9 o'clock or thereof. So I'll stop eating roughly about 7 o'clock or thereof.
Yeah, so
How about yourself?
that's a 14-hour fast,
Pretty good. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. Oh, that's great. Fasting refers to practicing not consuming any food for a period of time, and consuming only non-caloric beverages. So if we both eat at 7 p.m. tonight and then don't eat till 7 or 9 in the morning, 12 to 14-hour fast. So you're going to talk about how healthy ways to break that fast with a breakfast, but that's minimum, Dr. Gordy, is just to give our body a break for at least 12 hours. I mean, that's a really simple fast. I mean, that's a good definition of a simple fast. A brunch fast is doing it maybe 14 hours, maybe like you do, 14 hours, eat at 9 or 10 in the morning. Crescendo fast is 16 hours. Cycle fast is 16 hours. And then a strong fast is 16 to 18 hours. So last night I ate probably at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. And today I ate at noon. I take my lunch hour from noon to 2. So I ate today at noon and 16-ish hour fast. I don't get hungry in the morning personally because I've been doing this for a while. And my caveat is it's never wrong or bad to eat healthy, right? It's never wrong or bad to fuel your body with good fuel. And you'll share with our audience what is some good fuel. But what's really health enthusiasts believe fasting is a stress on the body. But when we stress our body by not putting any food into it, it creates something called autophagy. And autophagy has to do with our immune system, and it cleans out the unhealthy cells in our body. It's a way to force out bad cells. Just like when we exercise heavy, when we take a hot sauna, that's a stress on the body, Dr. Gordy, but it gives bad cells a reason to exit our body, and to get autophagy is to cleaning out our bad cells. And that's why it's really healthy for our mitochondria, because we want really clean, functioning health cells, putting good fuel in, getting out the waste, and then we're left with really lean and strong cells and a really healthy body. So some really good strategies. It's just like training with weights. We've talked in a past podcast about weight training and exercise, and you can't just, the average person can't say, great, I'm just not going to eat for 5 days, because after the first couple of days, you'll be so cranky or crabby or tired, or if you have high metabolism like yourself, you just might not function optimally. So start with 12 hours. If your job allows it and you don't need high energy and you don't get hungry until noon, try to extend your fast until noon and have a really sensible meal for lunch. And then what a lot of colleagues of mine do, they'll do that 4 or 5 times a week, do an intermittent fast, 7 p.m. till noon or 1, and have an eating window from 5 to 6 to 7 hours, 4 or 5 days a week. And then one time a week, it's called an OMAD, 1 meal a day, or a 24-hour fast that has really ramps up the stress on the body in a good way, and it really cleans out our cells. So 1 meal a day is called an OMAD. And then also the importance of, if you're doing regular fasting and regular intermittent fasting and a 1 meal a day most weeks, is to have for sure 1 day a week you have 3 meals. So our body never feels like it's continually starving, because it is at times from not fueling the body. So 1 meal a day really ramps up significant the amount of autophagy that's happening. And in this book, Superhuman by Dave Asprey, Dr. Gordy, it talks about fasting for 24 hours or more can double the regenerative abilities of stem cells, according to MIT research.
Wow.
And short-term calorie restriction also increases stem cell activity, even if you aren't fully fasting. So it has profound effects on. I'd just like to share a couple more effects of fasting intermittently. And then I have a couple benefits. So a couple benefits of to add to make your fast easier. So the top 5 benefits of clearing our cells of bad cells is we get rid of senescent cells, our old cells. We improve our mitochondrial health, like I mentioned before, eliminate viral infected cells. And so if you aren't feeling well, sometimes one of my simplest recipes is to take a sauna, drink some herbal tea and a lot of liquids, and get rid of the bad viruses in our body. Next is it reduces our cellular apoptosis, cellular death, and makes our cells stronger. And then it just makes us more resilient, because it's like exercise. It's nutritional exercise, Dr. Gordy. If we're exercising our muscles, we make them stronger and fitter. And then if we aren't eating, that's arguably one of the hardest things on the planet to do. But if you don't eat till noon or 1, or do a 1-day fast, it's like it doesn't stress you out where your next meal is going to be. You don't have to carry food with you everywhere. It's a really, really mental and physical way to get really strong and resilient. So I really, really recommend fasting for reducing inflammation and reducing discomfort in the body by getting rid of those inflammatory bad cells in our body. So it's just another tool in the toolkit to add to, is to try to experiment with intermittent fasting.
And I'm going to jump in, Dr. Mike, with a couple of comments. I think there's two types of fasting: the intermittent, where you're on and off, and then there's a kind of a continuous, more of a longer term, maybe 24 hours. The notes that I had taken is that when you're doing an intermittent fasting, some of the benefits are weight loss. Some people do this for the purpose of losing weight. It helps with the blood sugar. And of course, diabetes is one of the biggest diseases in young adults. It helps with desensitizing the cells, which is phenomenal to prevent diabetes. And as well as managing overall health, your body just works more efficiently. So that's part of the positive with the intermittent. But when you get to more of a long term, where you're doing it over 24 hours, for example, that's when it gets into what you're discussing: a cellular rejuvenation, a stronger immune system. You have more resilience with the infections and disease, mental clarity, enhanced brain function, cognitive performance. These are really some strong positive things. I did in Inquire, I was actually talking to a colleague just about this subject, and he had written, not written, but actually read a couple of books. And one of them he brought to my attention these rat studies, and I'm sure it was in the book you read as well. So I decided I'll do a search on rat studies and fasting. And there's a lot of studies. And the one that I happened to look at was from the University of Wisconsin, and they just did it in December of 2021, where they did with mice, they gave them a 24-hour fast, and then they could eat pretty much normally in a 2-hour period, just normal. And what they found is that those rats that were under the strict fasting guidelines of 24-2, that they lived almost 30% longer lives, besides functioning more on a healthier level. So pretty profound. There's another study, maybe not fasting, but when I was talking about reduction of your overall calorie. So in England, they did this study when they had I don't know, it must have been 12 to 14 volunteers. All of them were slightly overweight. Every one of them had some parameter that was off the mark. Some of them had high blood pressure, other had high cholesterol, some were borderline diabetes, etc. So what they did under this strict guideline of a dietitian is they went to an area, and for basically a month, 30 days, they did a restricted calorie intake that included nothing at first but salads and vegetables, organic. And then they added seeds and nuts, and then ultimately more protein. At the end of the study, they compared the initial parameters to the post parameters, and 100% of them lost weight. And on average, they lost roughly about 12 pounds. And then all of them, those parameters like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, those had reduced in everyone to pretty much close to the normal for some and in the normal for others. So basically, they completely changed their life in 30 days. What happens if you go to your doctor and you have high cholesterol? First thing they say is, hey, you got to take this med or this med for your high blood pressure. What happens if they send them to a camp for 30 days? They either do a fast or they do this type of program where they're restricted with calorie, nothing but organic, fresh salads and vegetables, etc. And they went that for 30 days, just like the study. It'd be significant to see. And then, of course, how much life would they gain at the end of their lives and the quality of their lives by just doing this instead of the medical route. Pretty fascinating.
It is. It is. In a real life study, I have a client who comes in. His wife wasn't on any medication, but he was on 3 different blood pressures in his 50s, not overweight, not a smoker, physical manual labor work. And he just deep down didn't think he needed three blood pressure medications. So one of the things he changed his diet. He got some genetic testing and took a couple supplements he was deficient in, but he kicked it off with a 72-hour fast. And
Wow.
he started doing cold showers first, and now he has a cold cylinder he jumps into. But long story short, 30 days, kind of like you're talking, he lost about 10 pounds. He didn't so-called need to, but he's just really lean, lost 10 pounds, and now he's not on the three blood pressure medications in just 30 days.
Wow.
And
And
I
then if
mean,
you
it's
look
just,
at the side effects, if you would have stayed in that lifestyle,
yeah,
you don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people take the meds without knowing the side effects, and long-term side effects. You get to a point where you're taking other meds to cover the symptoms of the side effects of different drugs. So I love stories like that. We certainly hear those frequently in our line of work.
yeah.
This is wonderful.
So fasting is free. It's easy once you train for it and you want to do a 12-hour, 14-hour, 16-hour, 24-hour. Do you want to do a 3-day water fast? And just as a side note, talk to your doctor if you're on a lot of medications or if you've ever been told not to fast. Just you don't just do it willy-nilly if you need medications and need to eat every 2 to 3 or 4 hours, whatever. I'm not saying that. But if you can you're relatively healthy and want to go to the next level, a lot of people do fasted workouts and, and they just have their herbal tea or coffee with no creamer and sugar. What breaks fast, and I'll let you lead into this, but what breaks a overnight fast is sugar or protein. And if you're putting creamer in your sugar and drinking your coffee and then you aren't eating till noon, well, you broke your fast with the coffee and the creamer. Plain cup of
Yeah.
coffee, plain cup of tea won't break your fast. It will just satisfy you in the morning with some liquid. But protein and sugar breaks the fast, Gordy. So with that, why don't you tell us some of your favorite breakfast starters? And then I can tell you some of my breakfast starters because I believe one of the most important things to do is start your day off right. If you feel your body properly in the morning, you have a better chance of having a really, really good day and maintaining good blood sugar and good energy throughout the day.
That sounds great. Mike, Dr. Mike, I want to just share really quick and then I'll dive right back into that. But I want to share the most popular type of intermittent fasting, and that's the 16 to 8. And of course, we just talked about that 16 hours fast, and you can eat normally for 8 hours. So for example, let's say 9 to 5. You can have 3 meals within 9 to 5, normal, just normal meals, ideally healthy. And then you take that whole 16 hours off. You can still drink fluid or non-calorie foods like a plain coffee or a tea, preferably organic. And that's really one of the more popular fasts that are out there. And I like your recommendation. If you're under medication, under the guidelines of your doctor, please consult. And obviously, if anybody's doing a fast and they just don't feel right, you can always quit, get back to normal, and make sure that you're doing things properly. So now into breakfast. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite breakfasts. And I used to have breakfast food like everybody else. And as you know, if you eat breakfast food, it's usually full of sugar and carbohydrates. And the problem with that is that you're simply getting too much sugars. And if you're getting too much sugars, guess what spikes? Your blood glucose goes way up. And guess what has to come all the way back down? Your blood sugar. So you're just inducing the concepts of a diabetic. And if you do it long term, your chances of getting diabetes increases significantly. So what do I like to do? Smoothies. One of my favorite smoothies is I take this, I put a little protein on. I don't like to endorse products, but I do love this because it's not only about the protein, it's called organic protein, but it's also about the nutrients. It's almost like a multiple vitamin. And then it has 50 superfoods that enhance your health. The next thing I put in is a product called collagen polypeptide. Again, I'm not endorsing this. If you can get an organic brand, perfect. And what this is, it's good for the skin. It's good for your nails. It's good for the hair. It's good for your joints. It's a great antioxidant. The next thing I do is I put a little bit of turmeric in there as well. And the reason I love turmeric is because it's one of the just most potent antioxidants. And there's been a few studies that show how it's an anti-cancer type of remedy in some of these studies. Next thing I do is I want real vegetables in mine. I know you can put a a vegetable mix in your smoothie, which is great. But what I like to do is I like to put the real McCoy. So I get organic, like an organic cauliflower, which basically serves a lot of different nutrients. And then you got this as well, organic spinach, and then acai. We talked, this is a very powerful antioxidant. And then I like blueberries, which are also high in antioxidant. And then I also put beets. I love beets. You mix them up. Yeah. One more thing, bananas, really important. So what do you put as far as the fluid in there? You can basically use water. You can use rice milk. Almond milk is also another, as well as coconut milk, which has a lot of antioxidant qualities, as well as electrolyte qualities. Other things that you can put in the smoothie include kale, broccoli, romaine, parsley, celery, wheatgrass, algae, avocados, strawberries, mangoes, pineapple, pomegranate. And then the liquid base, we just talked about that. You can also put green tea as a base. And then you also can add coconut oil powder, maca powder, almond butter, yogurt, hemp, chia, and then flaxseed as well. And then if you're really ambitious and you want to do things specific, for example, green, we talked about the green powder mix, spirella. Spirella is very powerful antioxidant, and it also helps your body detox from different types of metal. And then you got a chlorella as well. And that's just to name the smoothie component of this. So what I've done, and I'll leave in the link specifically what I talked about earlier about the smoothie that I personally mix up. So I'll have in the comments section. Other things you can do is oatmeal with berries. Make sure they're organic. Coconut milk as well. I usually add a little protein powder and collagen polypeptides. You can put almonds, chia seeds as well. Greek yogurt with granola and honey. You can use eggs and avocado. You can do chia seed pudding, fresh fruits, and you can also do egg sandwiches. And I like Ezekiel bread, which is more of a protein, so you don't spike your insulin level with too many simple carbohydrates. So those are just a few ideals for some of our viewers. And of course, you can be creative and mix all the above. How about you, Dr. Mike? I'm sure you got some great ideas.
I think I love that. It makes me want to try one of your smoothies. I think you could use that as any meal replacement. If you didn't want to chew on anything for dinner, you could make one of those. I think they're great and I like them. I agree that smoothies are a really, really great way to start the day and fuel your body and your cells. It's easy to digest and absorb all those superfoods and nutrients. Other ideas, though, however, I like eggs too. Eggs, there's 20 ways to make. My wife makes really good egg bakes and egg dishes, whether you put spinach in there. And some people want to put, some people can put potatoes in there, but I like her spinach egg bake. But you can make scrambles. You can just put three eggs in a pan and put all the cauliflower and spinach and a lot of vegetables, onions or garlic, and you make a bowl or a scramble. And eggs are a really quick, easy, nutritious way to get the proteins. And I also think of food, all meals, as a protein, a carbohydrate, and a fat. So with the smoothie, you got the protein powder, you got the carbs of the cauliflower and the spinach and the kale and all the other blueberries for the carbs. And then the fats, like you said, it could be from coconut, or it could be from chia seeds, it could be from flax, it can be from all, so good fat, MCT oils, some people put different oils and things in there too. So then that's a really, really well balanced meal and not just protein, not just sugar, blueberries. And I think that's such a smart idea.
I think when people do think of smoothies, they think of just a bunch of fruit and that's it. And I think they're missing the other components, getting a little protein so you don't spike your insulin level. That's the whole ideal of protein, is so your insulin levels don't spike. It'll kind of round it off so it can have a base where it keels over so your blood sugar isn't pressed to the max. So I think that's one of the benefits to both collagen polypeptides and proteins. I think they just balance the mix. But I think when people think smoothies, they want to just load a bunch of fruits, and they're missing the vegetables and the protein involved with it as well.
Well, then, like you said earlier, it's going to spike that blood sugar, of course, and it's going to drop. And so, but it's very satisfying with protein and good fats in there too for the brain in the body, and it's filling. So it will take you to
Uh-huh.
your next snack or
Well,
meal.
what I find, Dr. Mike, is I can have a glass and a half to 2 glasses of smoothie. I'm, pretty big guy, so I need enough calories, and it's very comfortable. I don't get hungry over the lunch hour. It's very satisfying. The good thing is I shared with the ingredients. And by the way, look at the comment. I'll share a link. It'll be a video of the specifics that I put into my smoothie. And it's easy to make. If you prep it, you put, most of the items are in the freezer, like bananas. I'll cut those up, put them in the freezer. I'll take the beets, I'll cut them up, I'll put them in the freezer. So everything's all there. I just kind of mix it. You get into the routine and the habit of doing it. And the best thing, it actually tastes very good. It's a very good tasting. It doesn't sound like it's very tasty, but you can't taste the cauliflower and you really can't taste the greens. You just can't taste them.
Yeah.
So I'm sold on the smoothie in the
Yeah.
mornings.
I agree
Yeah,
too.
great
I
stuff.
agree. It's fast though too. You don't want to be spending an hour and a half making a gourmet breakfast. You want to have something quick and easy and nutritious. What was interesting, you mentioned a lot of the foods that there's top foods and herbs that enhance our autophagy if we're fasting overnight and are doing extended fast or intermittent fast. I would just wanted to touch on some of those. Quercetin is found in red onions, cranberries, and elderberries. Ginger, curcumin or turmeric, blueberries, grapes, and red wine. Those are enhancing autophagy. And compounds with EGCG, green tea, you mentioned oolong tea and dark green. They even talk about matcha green tea as an autophagy tea because it has more antioxidants based on how it's grown and prepared. And then citrus, bergamot, or Earl Grey tea, oregano, sage, and rosemary. And so that's truly an autophagy smoothie. It's an anti-aging smoothie. It's an energizing smoothie. It's a great, great way to start your day with that. And then one last thing to remember is if you made a really good meal the night before or two and you don't have any histamine issues, meaning you don't have any trouble with leftovers, I think leftovers can be a good breakfast too, because you can heat that up in a pan. And people go, "What? You aren't having Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes? You're having a part of your supper from last night in a pan warmed up?" Well, of course, if it was good the night before and it gave me good nourishment, that's a heck of a lot better than 4 Pop-Tarts and a donut at Starbucks on the way to work.
I noticed when I started the smoothies that my waistline was a lot more lean and versus the other diet. I mean, I've always taken cereal, for example, maybe with shredded wheat with protein in it. So it's always relatively healthy. But what I find with the smoothie, just metabolism is even that much better and super easy to make. One more comment, and this would be interesting. I don't have stats to show this, but if we ask 10 random people what they eat for breakfast, how many would say cereal? The traditional cereal, you can go down the cereal and just about 90%, if not 95% of them are full of sugar, simple carbohydrates, and just not healthy for you. And I would guess that's a pretty high number of people that actually just have cereal versus something a little more healthier. Just eating eggs is more healthy than some of these cereals that are on the shelf.
Especially for kids that are supposed to be alert and learning and growing and sitting and paying attention in the class. that's not really a good start for them to jack them up on sugar and or
Hmm.
gluten and or all this folic acid and other chemicals in there besides the sugar. And we think, oh, we'll just stop at Starbucks so I can get a drink and then give my kid whatever pastry is there or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not a great start to the day.
So I had one of my patients was a school teacher. So I thought, I want to do an informal study. So what I did was I asked some questions of his students. And some of the questions are, do you expect to have one or more diseases when you get older? And the majority said yes. Do you expect to be overweight and be sluggish? The majority said yes. And when I got the results back, and the teacher also looked at the results and go, that is unbelievable. It's kind of like the mindset where our children now are expecting to be overweight or expecting to develop some type of disease. And of course, that's not the natural flow of how our bodies were meant. But I found that study, firsthand study, unbelievable. Just the mindset of our kids. And now you look at kids as they mature, we're living in a society, we got a lot of sick people, a lot of unhealthy people. And you can look at all those. We'll be talking about EMFs next episode. You can talk about that. We can talk about the diets that people are eating full of sugar, just bad foods, the lifestyle stuck in front of computers with poor posture. The list goes on.
Absolutely. Well, we at the end of every episode, we challenge our listeners to share one takeaway that they learned or relearned or got introduced to on this episode with a colleague, a family member, or a neighbor. Maybe you heard some different foods that if you're already making a smoothie, maybe you heard some different foods that you can look up to add to your current smoothie, or maybe you'll ditch the sugary cereal and take Dr. Gordon's advice and start with a smoothie because it's quick and easy and fast. You do have to prep and plan a little bit, but it's truly fast. So what is your number one takeaway? And then number two, what is your action step that you're going to do based on our conversation today? Is it going to be having a breakfast? Is it going to be extending your fast from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. to maybe a noon to a 16-8, like you talked about? Maybe you're already doing that and you want to try a 1 day, 24-hour fast. And maybe you're just going to start eating breakfast, get some protein and make some egg dishes and or get some protein to make a smoothie. So what is your one action step? And with that, Gordy, do you want to leave us with any fascinating remarks?
No, I can't wait to look at the comments. I hope there is some comments. I'd love to see the action steps. I really think it makes a big difference. People are going to have higher energy, more focus. You add to the regimen, to the sleep, like we talked about last week, goal setting, and I can't wait for our next episode next week.
Yeah,
So,
talking about EMFs and how we navigate, where we live in different states and different size cities, but it's still the same thing. Electromagnetic frequencies affect us all, and we're going to share some strategies on how you can live in a world that is different than it was 100 years ago, and we have to adapt to a different stress called EMF stress.